Welcome to this training on hazardous materials management, also known as Materials Safety Data Sheets or MSDS. All staff should be aware of hazardous materials as it pertains to their site and or work areas. The purpose of today's training is to make staff aware of the location of the SDS book on your site and the information it contains about hazardous materials. In March of 2012, the Hazardous Communication Standard established by OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, was upgraded to be more uniform across work sites and raise awareness of hazardous materials on work sites. Before, sites were required to maintain an MSDS book on all sites. But now we have an SDS book that contains safety data sheets for that specific site. The backbone of the hazardous communication system are the data sheets that describe what hazardous materials are in the facilities and how to respond in case of an emergency. The old material safety data sheets were used in our buildings should now be updated to safety data sheets. We dropped the M to make the system more user friendly. All chemicals used in your facility must have an SDS sheet. What is the Hazardous Communication Standard? The HCS is known as the Right to Know law because it is public information and we want to make this information available to all staff and any visitors to our sites. The system known as the Globally Harmonized System, or GHS, is designed to help people understand the SDS sheets in their simplest form so that if any questions or situations arise where exposure to a dangerous chemical may have occurred, staff can quickly get information on how to handle that situation. As you can see from these two situations, employees should be aware of any potential hazardous situations and they should always practice safe workplace habits. The basic framework of the Hazardous Communication Standard provides a uniform approach to assist those that are dealing with hazardous materials on a daily basis. The three major changes that have happened recently include a change in how hazardous materials are classified so that they have consistent warnings, establishment of consistent labeling, and a collection of this information into our safety data sheets. The Hazardous Communication Standard has now required more uniformity in how containers are labeled so that people can understand the symbols quickly, no matter what bottle or chemical they are handling. If you look at these pictures, you will see the same symbol is being used to identify a similar hazard on different products. In this case, the X, which stands for harmful, is the same on each of the different bottles. The most recent Hazard Communication Standard revision was published in the Federal Register on March 2012 with an effective date of 60 days thereafter. The revised standard, which OSHA is calling HAZCOM 2012, was started during the United Nations Earth Summit of 1992. In May of 2012, OSHA updated one of the most significant changes in this revision with its adoption of the United Nations Globally Harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals, better known as GHS. So what is it? It is an international approach to the classification of hazardous chemicals and the communication of hazards to workers via labels and safety data sheets. This approach ensures consistency in health and physical hazard classification of chemicals and how that information is communicated to the end user on a global scale. The new safety data sheets will include formatting changes that were consistent with the new globally harmonized system. For example, the way that the chemicals are identified or named is consistent. First aid measures have been updated to handle any emergency situation. Handling and storage methods have been made more consistent. Ecological information to protect the environment has been made available as a result of information being shared across the nation. Remember, it's always important to make sure you wear the proper protective equipment when you are faced with a potentially hazardous situation. Each site is required to have a written hazardous communication plan. Each hazardous communication plan should include a list of hazardous chemicals, protective measures, provisions for container labeling, collection of availability of SDS sheets, responsible parties along with the company information, employee safety data training logs. Additionally, the site's hazardous communication plan should be included in the SDS binder, should not be lengthy or complicated, and the existing plans should be updated to include current information. Now it's time for a short quiz to help you remember the important points from this training. Be sure to click all the way to the end of the training to close.